Alec is excited. We got somebody with us this morning. I think he's on the air from the land of northern aggression as well. Am I right, Alec?
Yes, sir.
See, we spell it A-L-E-X down here.
No.
For whatever reason.
No.
I'm kidding. There's a difference in Alec and Alex.
Yeah, how many people call you Alex?
Oh, everyone.
Yeah.
So many.
I say, no, it's Alec. It's not Alex. It's Alec. Alec Barkett is with us. He is a former New York State chair for the Young Republicans for Liberty. He is the Siena College chapter founder for Turning Point USA. He is going to be present at the White House.
He was already there.
Already there for President Trump signing an executive order for free speech on college campuses. We've talked a lot about the lack of conservative thought, the lack of conservative representation in some of the college debate and dialogue. Alec, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Ken. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Great to have you here. You got invited to the White House. I guess you would consider yourself to be a free speech activist with Young Americans for Liberty. So let's talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, kind of the backstory of what motivated you to get involved and how you ended up at the White House.
Absolutely. So I got involved with college Republicans my freshman year at Siena College, and hearing stories from a lot of the other students about how they were treated by some of the professors based on their ideology. You know, a lot of people claim to have grades lowered. A lot of people have issues speaking out in class to get called out by professors. A lot of issues like that going around. So I decided I wanted to do something about it and see where I could get involved. And that led me to getting involved with Young Americans for Liberty. I started off by founding a chapter of Young Americans for Liberty, YAL, and Turning Point at Siena. And in that way, I was able to represent a lot of the mindset of the libertarians and conservatives both on campus. And we had a really successful chapter here, still do going. And from there, applied for a job to be New York State chair. And as New York State chair, you don't just oversee your individual school, but you oversee 20 to 30 different schools. And one of the main issues YL focuses on is ensuring free speech rights on college campuses. This is both for private schools and public schools. There's a little bit of a difference in how it's handled. Essentially, what we would try and do is target schools or public schools with free speech zones. Are you guys familiar with free speech zones and kind of how that works?
A little bit. Please update our audience.
Yeah, so there will literally be areas on campuses with tens of thousands of students, the size of a tennis court or a basketball court, tucked away in the corner somewhere, and they'll say, all right, this is your free speech zone. So from noon to 2, you can exercise your free speech rights here in this area with written permission, and that's it.
Wow.
And these are publicly funded universities, making this completely unconstitutional. So what we would do is come in and we would send the school a letter and say, I will be exercising my free speech rights outside of your little zone at this time. Come and get me. And a lot of the times they'd show up, a lot of times they wouldn't show up. And basically how it works is if they show up and you get them on camera trying to stop you from speaking out and taking away your First Amendment rights, you win that lawsuit 10 out of 10 times. It really is very rewarding work in the sense that you're not just benefiting students with your, other conservatives and libertarians. You're benefiting all students on that campus, by basically returning the rights they already should have had.
Alec, Siena hosted an event called Let Freedom Ring Free Speech Conference. When you are active on Siena or other college campuses, what's the response you get from students who may disagree with you?
I have had less issues with students, and I know some others have had different experiences. For example, I met the gentleman who was punched in the face at UC Berkeley 3 weeks ago maybe, for exercising his free speech rights. I have had far more issues with professors. I don't know if you looked into the background of this much, but when we did our Let Freedom Ring event, we were hosting Roger Stone, James O'Keefe. The vice president of the NRA is actually a Siena alumni, so we had an NRA speaker come in and quite a few others. And that caused a major uproar among the professors, to the point where we literally had a professor, and this is all public now, we had Facebook at the time and everything. We had a professor CC my roommate in an email calling our organizations evil and saying we were a major problem on campus they had to do something about.
Oh, let me ask you a question. I'd be very interested. The media tells us every day, it's a drumbeat, that there aren't many young people who care much for Donald Trump or the way he runs the country. Is that a fair articulation, or do you disagree with the fact that an overwhelming majority of people find the current president offensive?
On campus, I would say that's absolutely not true. You had a lot of the same issues you had during the election, where a lot of people are afraid to speak out and say that they support the president. And you get that in classes all the time. I mean, I was at one point actually worried about telling my professors I got invited to the White House to meet the president, to be acknowledged for free speech activism, because a lot of them I know, hate him. Like, it's beyond dislike, it's beyond disagreement. They hate the man. But as far as students are concerned, I attended the Turning Point National Conference last year, which at the time was the largest gathering of conservative students in history. There were thousands of us, and most of which in support of President Trump. It takes someone like President Trump to be able to motivate a base of students to travel from all over the country to West Palm Beach, Florida, to get together and discuss issues in support of him.
Alec, let's go back to that executive order that was signed at the White House. What was it like meeting the president, and how is that executive order going to affect students like yourself?
Yeah, so basically what it does to ensure free speech rights on campus is to play with federal funding. And if a lot of these schools want to have free speech zones and enforce that, fine. They'll lose a lot of funding from the federal government, and obviously they rely on that. So in that way, it's going to be extremely effective. And honestly, it's unfortunate he has to do that in the first place, because, I mean, we're talking about First Amendment rights here. This isn't anything crazy. As far as meeting the president, it was unreal, honestly. There's hundreds of free speech activists our age, and we didn't necessarily even know this was happening. The White House is very hush-hush when it comes to a lot of events like this. So the fact that I was one of 60 students that was there, when there are so many hundreds doing this kind of work, was really just an honor.
Alec, we appreciate your work. We appreciate your time. You and Alec have a similar accent, but we're working on him to get him how to properly pronounce and articulate words. Appreciate you and applaud you, my friend. Good talking to you. Nice to meet you.
Absolutely. Thank you as well.
Yes, sir. We'll take a break. We'll be back after. You done good, Alec.
Thank you.
You did real good there. He's a sports guy, but he's versatile. Mm-hmm. Might be dangerous, Rev. Probably work cheaper than I will, too. Back in a minute. Good morning, PD, Live 95.